My name is Jesse, and I am 69 years old. I was sitting in my living room that afternoon when I heard words that shattered everything I believed about my own daughter. She forgot to hang up the phone. Through the Bluetooth speaker, I heard her voice clearly. "He has to go to a nursing home." My heart stopped. She was talking about me, about the house I built with my own hands. She did not know the truth about this house. Have you ever discovered something about your own family that made you question everything? Before I tell you what happened next, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own home, leave a comment below telling me where you are watching from. This story might just change how you see things. I was born in 1956 in a small farming town in rural Ohio. My father worked at the steel mill, coming home every night with soot on his face and calluses on his hands. My mother stayed home cooking meals that stretched whatever little money we had. We were not rich by any measure, but we had love, and that was enough. After high school, I did not have the money for college, so I did what made sense. I became a carpenter. Started as an apprentice, learning how to measure twice and cut once, how to feel the grain of wood beneath my fingers, how to build things that would last longer than I would. For 45 years, I worked with my hands. I started as a helper, sweeping sawdust and carrying lumber. By the time I was 40, I had my own small construction business. Nothing fancy, just me and a few good men building homes for families who needed them. Every nail I hammered, every board I cut, every house I finished was a point of pride. My philosophy was simple. Work hard. Save your money. Never owe anyone anything. That philosophy served me well. I met Margaret in 1982 at a Sunday service at our local church. She was sitting 3 pews ahead of me, wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes. I could not take my eyes off her. After the service, I walked up to her with sweaty palms and a heart beating so fast I thought it might burst out of my chest. She was a nurse at the community hospital, compassionate kind, with a laugh that could light up any room. We talked for 2 hours that day, standing in the church parking lot, while everyone else went home. By the end of that conversation, I knew I was going to marry her. We wed in 1984. Small ceremony, maybe 40 people. Her dress was simple, not expensive, but she looked like an angel to me. We did not have much money for a honeymoon, so we drove to a little cabin by a lake and spent a week just being together. In 1986, our daughter Brenda was born. I remember holding her for the first time, this tiny bundle, wrapped in a pink blanket, looking up at me with those big eyes. I made a silent promise to her that day. I would give her everything I never had. I would work until my bones ached to make sure she had a good life. And I did. We raised Brenda in a small house, nothing special, but it was ours. Margaret and I both worked hard. She took extra shifts at the hospital. I took every job that came my way. We saved every penny we could, putting it away for Brenda's future. When Brenda was a little girl, she would sit on my lap while I read her stories. She would help Margaret bake cookies on Sunday afternoons. We played catch in the backyard. We had picnics in the park. Simple things, ordinary things. But those were the happiest years of my life. Margaret passed away in 2018. Lung cancer. She never smoked a day in her life, but the disease took her anyway. I held her hand in that hospital room until the very end. When she took her last breath, a part of me went with her. The grief was unbearable. Some days I could not get out of bed, but I had to keep going for Brenda. At least that is what I told myself. Now let me tell you about the house that changed everything. In 2005, I bought a large piece of land on Maple Hill, just outside Columbus. It was beautiful. Rolling hills, old oak trees, a view that stretched for miles. I had saved for 20 years, and I finally had enough. I designed the house myself, drew the blueprints on my kitchen table night after night until every detail was perfect. Then I built it. Took me 3 years. I did most of the work with my own hands, with help from a few trusted friends. When it was finished, it was everything I had ever dreamed of. A 3-story Victorian-style home with a wraparound porch, 6 bedrooms, a library, a garden where Margaret planted roses every spring. It was our paradise. Today, that house is worth about $5 million. The land value has skyrocketed over the years. Developers have been sniffing around the area, but I never wanted to sell. This was my legacy, the physical proof of everything I had worked for. Here is the important part. The house was in my name. Only my name. I never added Brenda to the deed. Margaret and I discussed it many times over the years. We agreed. Brenda needed to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. We would help her when we could, but she had to earn her own way in life. After Margaret died, Brenda came to me with a suggestion. She and her husband Victor wanted to move in with me. To help take care of me, she said. I was grieving and lonely, so I agreed. It seemed like a blessing at the time. Brenda and Victor moved in 2019. At first, everything seemed perfect. Brenda cooked dinner most nights. Victor mowed the lawn and helped with repairs around the house. We ate together, watched television together, and for a while, I felt like I had a family again. Victor was 42 years old when they moved in. He worked in sales, always talking about the next big deal. He had slick hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I tried to like him. For Brenda's sake, I tried. But slowly, things began to change. Victor started asking questions about the property value. He would bring up real estate prices at dinner, talking about how much houses in the area were selling for. He would casually mention investors who were looking to buy land on Maple Hill. Brenda started asking about paperwork. Where did I keep the deed? Did I have a will? Who was listed as beneficiary on my accounts? She said it was just to be prepared, just in case something happened to me. I smiled and nodded, and never gave her straight answers. Something felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was my daughter. She loved me. She would never do anything to hurt me. At least that is what I believed. I used to sit on the porch in the evenings watching the sun set over the hills. Margaret and I had done that together for years. Now, I did it alone. Sometimes Brenda would join me, and we would talk about the old days. Those moments felt genuine. Those moments made me believe that moving in together had been the right choice. But other times, I would catch Victor looking at the house with a strange expression, like he was calculating something, like he was waiting for something. I told myself I was being paranoid, just an old man imagining things. How wrong I was. It was a Tuesday afternoon in September. The air was starting to turn cool, and the leaves on the old oak tree outside my window were beginning to change color. I was sitting in my favorite armchair in the living room, reading a novel Margaret had given me years ago. I must have read it 100 times, but it still brought me comfort. Brenda was in the kitchen talking on her phone. I could hear her voice muffled through the walls. I assumed it was something about work. She worked in human resources for a company downtown, though I never quite understood what she did exactly. I did not pay much attention at first. But then something strange happened. Her voice became clearer, much clearer. I looked around confused until I realized what had happened. Her phone had connected to the Bluetooth speaker in the living room, the same speaker we used to play music during dinner parties. She must have walked outside to the backyard, not realizing the connection was still active. Every word she said came through that speaker, like she was standing right next to me. She was talking to her friend Denise. I recognized the name from stories Brenda had told me. They had been friends since college. I was about to call out to let her know about the speaker when I heard something that made me freeze. Dad is getting older. He cannot take care of himself much longer. I sat perfectly still. We have been talking about it for months, she continued. Victor found a nursing home about an hour outside the city. It is affordable, nothing fancy, but it will do. My hands gripped the armrests of my chair. I could feel my heartbeat in my temples. Once he is in there, we can finally move forward with the house. Victor already has a potential buyer. Some developer who wants to build condos on the hill. He said we could get at least $5 million for it. $5 million. The number hung in the air like a curse. Denise's voice came through tinny but audible. What if your dad does not want to go? Brenda laughed. It was a cold sound. He does not have a choice. We live here now. The paperwork must have my name on it somewhere. Dad is old. He probably does not even remember what he signed. My chest tightened. I could not breathe. Victor's voice joined the conversation. He must have been outside with her. When this is done, we are going to Japan for 3 weeks. A celebration. Maybe hit Tokyo, Kyoto, the works. Brenda agreed enthusiastically. He has to go to a nursing home. It is the only way. I sat there unable to move as they continued planning my disposal, like I was an old piece of furniture to be thrown away. They talked about timelines, about how to convince me, about how easy it would be, because I was just a confused old man who did not know any better. The call ended eventually. I heard Brenda come back inside humming to herself, completely unaware that I had heard everything. I sat in that chair for a long time after she went upstairs. The book lay forgotten in my lap. The sunset painted the sky orange and red outside my window, but I did not see it. All I could see was the truth. My daughter, the baby I had held in my arms 38 years ago, the child I had sacrificed everything for, wanted to throw me away and sell my house. But another part of me, the part that had survived 69 years of hard work and hard lessons, told me to wait, to think, to plan. Because there was something Brenda did not know, something Victor did not know. The house was mine, only mine. Their names were not on any document, not the deed, not the title, nothing. I had the power here. I just had to figure out how to use it. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Margaret. What would she want me to do? She had always been the wise one, the one who knew how to handle difficult situations with grace. But Margaret was gone. I had to figure this out on my own. Around 2 a.m, I got up quietly. I went to my study, the small room at the back of the house where I kept my important documents. I opened the safe using the combination only I knew. The deed was there. I pulled it out and read it under the lamplight. The only name on that document was Jesse Carter. No Brenda, no Victor, just me. I held that paper in my hands and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and bleeding. But now there was something else too. Determination. If they wanted to play this game, I would show them how it was done. The next morning, I went about my routine as if nothing had happened, made coffee, read the newspaper, smiled at Brenda when she came down for breakfast. "Good morning, Dad." She kissed my cheek. "Sleep well," I nodded, like a baby. Inside, I was burning. But I had learned long ago that patience was a weapon, and I intended to use it. Over the next few days, I watched them carefully. I noticed things I had missed before. The way Victor would go through my filing cabinet when he thought I was napping. The way Brenda would redirect conversations whenever I mentioned the house. The whispered phone calls that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. They thought they were clever. They thought I was just a confused old man. 1 week after I heard that phone call, I made my move. I called Mr. Harrison, the lawyer who had handled Margaret's estate. He was 65 years old, a few years younger than me, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. He had been a friend of Margaret's family for decades, and I trusted him completely. We met at his office downtown. I told him everything. The phone call, the nursing home, the plan to sell my house. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. "Jesse," he said legally, "you have every right to do whatever you want with that property. Your daughter and son-in-law have no claim to it whatsoever." "I know," I replied. "That is why I want to sell it." His eyebrows rose. "Sell it before they can do anything, before they even know what is happening." He studied me for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. "You want to beat them at their own game. I want to protect what is mine, and I want them to understand that I am not as helpless as they think." Mr. Harrison nodded. "Let me make some calls." Within a week, we had a plan. Mr. Harrison contacted a reputable real estate firm that specialized in discreet transactions. They understood the situation and agreed to keep everything confidential. The house was appraised at $5.2 million, higher than I expected. The location, the land, the quality of construction I had put into it over the years. All of it added up. We found a buyer within 2 weeks, a businessman from California who wanted to relocate his family to Ohio. He had cash ready and was willing to close quickly. I agreed to sell for $5 million. We negotiated one special condition. I would be allowed to stay in the house for 6 more weeks before officially handing over the keys. That would give me time to prepare. All the paperwork was signed at Mr. Harrison's office, notarized, legal, binding. Brenda and Victor never knew. During this time, I began to quietly move my belongings out of the house. Every day when they went to work, I would pack a box or two. Photographs of Margaret, my tools, books, keepsakes from our life together. I rented a small storage unit across town. I made trip after trip, moving my life piece by piece. Brenda never noticed. She was too busy planning her nursing home scheme and her Japan vacation. I also found myself a new place to live. A modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood near a park. It cost $350,000. Nothing fancy, but it had everything I needed. A small kitchen, a comfortable living room, a bedroom where I could hang Margaret's picture and talk to her before I went to sleep. I bought it outright with cash. No mortgage, no debt, just like I had always lived. The move happened slowly, deliberately. Each day I looked around the house I had built and said goodbye to another room. The kitchen where Margaret and I had shared thousands of meals. The living room where Brenda had taken her first steps. The porch where I had watched countless sunsets. It hurt. Lord, it hurt. But I knew it was necessary. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Brenda knocked on my door one evening with a big smile on her face. "Dad, we have exciting news. Victor and I are going to Japan. 3 weeks. We have been planning it for months." Victor stood behind her, that slick smile plastered on his face. "You will be okay here alone, right? We can arrange for someone to check on you if you need." I looked at them. My daughter and her husband. The people who were planning to throw me into a nursing home and steal everything I had built. "No need," I said calmly. "I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Brenda hugged me. "Thanks, Dad. We will bring you back something nice." On the day they left for the airport, I stood on the porch and waved goodbye. They loaded their suitcases into the car, excited about their trip. Their celebration trip. The trip they were taking to celebrate getting rid of me. Victor honked the horn twice as they drove away. I watched until the car disappeared around the bend. Then I turned and went back inside. I had 3 weeks. 3 weeks to finish what I had started. The first week they were gone, I focused on clearing out the last of my belongings. The house was nearly empty now, stripped of everything that had made it a home. I walked through the rooms one final time, the master bedroom where Margaret and I had slept for so many years. I could still smell her perfume if I closed my eyes and concentrated. The nursery we had converted into a guest room after Brenda grew up. The kitchen with its hand-carved cabinets that I had built myself. Each room held memories, laughter and tears, arguments and reconciliations. The entire history of our family was written in these walls. I sat down on the floor of the empty living room and cried. Not for the house, for what it had represented, for what I had lost. But then I dried my eyes and got back to work. There was no time for sentiment. Not now. I kept a journal during those days, wrote letters to Margaret, even though she was not there to read them, told her what was happening, asked for her guidance. In one entry I wrote, "I am sorry we raised her this way. Maybe we gave her too much. Maybe we did not teach her enough about what really matters. But I will not let her take everything. I will not let her throw me away like garbage." The second week I finalized all the paperwork with Mr. Harrison. The sale was complete. The money was transferred to my new bank account, an account Brenda knew nothing about. I divided the money carefully. $500,000 went into a long-term savings account. $200,000 stayed liquid for daily expenses. $1 million went into safe investment funds. The rest I would use as needed, including a significant portion I planned to donate to charity. I also wrote a new will. In it, I left everything to an educational charity for children from low-income families. Brenda was not mentioned anywhere in the document. Some might call that petty. Maybe it was. But I had given Brenda every opportunity to be a good person. She had made her choice. Mr. Harrison advised me to consider carefully. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "She is your only child." I am sure I told him. She had her chance. The third week I moved into my new apartment. It was strange at first living in such a small space after decades in that big house, but I adjusted quickly. I met my neighbors. There was a woman named Eleanor, 72 years old, who lived down the hall. She was a widow like me, and we bonded over shared experiences. She brought me homemade pie on my second day there. It reminded me of the pies Margaret used to make. I also reconnected with Frank, an old friend from my carpentry days. He was 70 now, retired like me, and living just a few miles away. We had lost touch over the years. Brenda had always found reasons to discourage me from seeing old friends. Now I understood why. She wanted me isolated, dependent on her. Frank and I started meeting for coffee every morning. We talked about the old days, about the houses we had built, about the friends we had lost. It felt good to have someone to talk to again. I also joined a volunteer group that Frank was involved with. They built houses for families in need. It was work I had done all my life, and even at my age I could still swing a hammer. Not as fast as before, but good enough. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt like I had a purpose. On the last day before Brenda and Victor were scheduled to return, I drove back to the house one final time. The new owners had already started moving some of their furniture in. They were a nice family, a couple in their 40s with 2 teenage children. They shook my hand and thanked me for selling them such a beautiful home. I walked through the empty rooms one last time. Most of my furniture was gone sold or donated. The walls were bare. The echo of my footsteps was the only sound. I stopped at the front door, took one long look back. "Goodbye," I whispered. Then I placed an envelope on the doorstep, addressed to Brenda and Victor. I had written the letter by hand, taking my time to choose every word carefully. I locked the door, handed the keys to the new owners, and drove away. I did not look back. I was sitting in my new apartment when I knew they would be arriving. I pictured the scene in my mind. their taxi pulling up to the familiar iron gate. Brenda's smile as she anticipated coming home. Victor already calculating how to proceed with his nursing home plan. They had landed at Columbus Airport that morning, returning from 3 weeks in Japan. I imagined them tired, but happy, laden with souvenirs and full of stories, ready to put the next phase of their scheme into action. The taxi wound its way through the familiar streets, past the old oak trees that lined Maple Hill, up the winding driveway toward the house I had built. And then, Brenda noticed first. Something was different. The gate had been repainted, a different color, darker, more modern. She frowned but said nothing. Maybe Dad had decided to spruce things up while they were gone. Victor noticed the unfamiliar car in the driveway, a silver SUV they had never seen before. "Whose car is that?" he asked. Brenda shook her head. "I do not know. Maybe Dad has visitors." They paid the taxi driver and grabbed their luggage. Victor wheeled the heavy suitcases up the stone path while Brenda walked ahead, keys in hand. She reached the front door, the same door she had walked through thousands of times, the door I had hung myself 30 years ago, making sure it was perfectly level. She inserted the key into the lock. It did not fit. She tried again, pushed harder, wiggled it. "Nothing, Victor." She called out, her voice tight. "The key does not work." Victor dropped the suitcases and strode over. "Let me try." He grabbed the key and jammed it into the lock. Same result. The key would not turn. The lock had been changed. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. Brenda's face was pale. "I do not know. Maybe Dad changed the locks for security." Victor pounded on the door. "Hello? Anyone home?" A moment later, the door opened. A woman stood there. Mid-40s, unfamiliar face, confused expression. "Can I help you?" she asked. Brenda stared at her. "Who are you?" "What are you doing in my house?" The woman's confusion deepened. "Your house." "I am sorry, but this is our house. We just bought it." The world tilted. Brenda grabbed the doorframe for support. "That is impossible," Victor sputtered. "This house belongs to my father-in-law. He lives here." "Where is he?" The woman shook her head. "The previous owner moved out 2 weeks ago. We closed on the sale last month. I am sorry, but I think there has been some misunderstanding." Victor's face turned red. "This is fraud. This is illegal. I am calling the police." The woman remained calm. "Please do. All our paperwork is in order. We bought this house through a legitimate real estate agency and a licensed attorney." It was then that Brenda looked down and saw the envelope. It was sitting on the doorstep, slightly to the left of the welcome mat. White envelope. Her name written on the front in familiar handwriting. Her father's handwriting. She bent down with trembling hands and picked it up. Victor was still arguing with the new homeowner, but Brenda did not hear him anymore. She tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter inside. "Dear Brenda." She read those 2 words and felt her knees go weak. "I heard everything that afternoon." The phone connected to the Bluetooth speaker. "You forgot to hang up." Brenda's hand flew to her mouth. "I know about the nursing home. I know about your plan to sell this house. I know everything." The letters blurred as tears filled her eyes. "What you did not know is that this house has always been mine. Only mine. Your name was never on any document." She felt the blood drain from her face. "I built this house with my own hands. I paid for it with 45 years of hard work. And I have sold it." She made a sound. Something between a gasp and a sob. "The new owners moved in yesterday." Victor had stopped yelling. He was reading over her shoulder now, his face ashen. "Do not bother looking for me. I am safe, healthy, and finally free." Brenda's legs gave out. She sat down heavily on the doorstep, the letter clutched in her hands. "I loved you, Brenda. I still do. But I will not be thrown away like an old piece of furniture." A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. "Maybe one day you will understand. Your father, Jesse." Victor snatched the letter from her hands. "This cannot be happening. He cannot do this." He pulled out his phone and called his lawyer friend. "Mr. Drake, it is Victor. I need you to look into something immediately. My father-in-law sold a house without our knowledge. This has to be illegal." He paced the driveway while Brenda sat motionless on the doorstep. The new homeowner had retreated inside, closing the door firmly behind her. After 10 minutes, Victor hung up. His face was the color of old paper. "What did he say?" Brenda whispered. Victor could barely get the words out. "It is legal. Your father owned the house outright. He had every right to sell it. There is nothing we can do." Brenda let out a wail, a sound of pure anguish. The neighbors began to peek out of their windows, drawn by the commotion. "We have to go," Victor said through clenched teeth. "People are watching." They gathered their suitcases. The luggage they had packed with such excitement 3 weeks ago, the souvenirs they had bought in Japan. All of it felt meaningless now. As they walked down the driveway, Brenda turned back one last time. The house stood there beautiful and solid, exactly as it had always been. But it was not hers anymore. It had never been hers. And she finally understood what she had lost. That night, Brenda and Victor checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. Their luggage was still in the house. Their clothes, their belongings, everything. Victor paced the small room, ranting about lawsuits and appeals and legal loopholes. But even he knew it was hopeless. Brenda sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the letter. She had read it at least 20 times. Each time the words cut deeper. "I loved you, Brenda. I still do." Those words hurt the most. Victor finally stopped pacing. "This is your fault," he spat. "If you had been more careful, if you had just kept your mouth shut on that phone call." Brenda looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "My fault. You were right there with me. You were the one with the big plans. Do not put this on me. It was your father, your family." And just like that, the cracks in their marriage began to show. They argued until 3 in the morning. Cruel words, accusations, blame. By the time they finally stopped exhausted and hoarse, something fundamental had broken between them. Brenda lay awake for the rest of the night, staring at the water-stained ceiling of the motel room. She thought about her mother, what Margaret would have said if she could see what Brenda had become. She thought about all the sacrifices her parents had made, the extra shifts, the skipped vacations, the second-hand clothes so Brenda could have new ones. And she thought about the nursing home, the cold clinical place where she had planned to dump her father like unwanted baggage. For the first time in years, Brenda felt genuine shame. 3 weeks passed after Brenda and Victor's disastrous homecoming. I spent those weeks settling into my new life. Every morning I woke up early and went for a walk in the park. The autumn leaves crunched under my feet, and the crisp air filled my lungs. I had forgotten how good it felt to simply walk without purpose. Coffee with Frank became a daily ritual. We would sit at the same table in the corner of a little cafe, 2 old men solving the problems of the world over mediocre coffee and excellent conversation. Eleanor from down the hall became a good friend. She had lost her husband 5 years ago and understood loneliness in a way few people could. Sometimes we would cook dinner together, taking turns in each other's tiny kitchens. I joined the volunteer construction group and found purpose in the work. There is something deeply satisfying about building something with your own hands. Even at 69, I could still measure and cut and hammer. My back ached at the end of each day, but it was a good ache. The ache of honest labor. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt alive. But there was still unfinished business. One evening, my phone rang. A number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. Dad, it was Brenda. Her voice was small and shaky. Nothing like the confident woman who had plotted to send me to a nursing home. I did not say anything. Just waited. And I need to see you. Please, I need to explain. I need to apologize. I thought for a long moment. Every instinct told me to hang up, to protect myself from more hurt. But she was still my daughter. Despite everything, that fact remained. Coffee shop on 5th Street, I finally said. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. I hung up before she could respond. She was already there when I arrived the next day, sitting at a corner table looking nothing like the woman I remembered. Her face was gaunt, dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were wrinkled like she had slept in them. She stood up when she saw me. "Sit down," I said. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop hummed with the noise of other conversations, but at our table, there was only silence. Finally, Brenda broke. "I am so sorry." The words came out in a rush, accompanied by tears. "I am so sorry for everything. I do not know what I was thinking. I do not know how I became this person." I watched her cry. Part of me wanted to reach across the table and comfort her the way I had when she was a little girl with a scraped knee. But I held back. "Tell me everything," I said. And she did. Through sobs and hiccups, she told me everything. Victor had convinced her that they needed the money. He had debts she did not know about. Gambling debts. Bad investments. They were on the verge of bankruptcy when he came up with the plan. The nursing home was his idea, she said. He said it would be easy, that you were old and confused and would not know the difference. I listened without interrupting. I should have said no. I should have protected you. But I was scared. Scared of losing Victor. Scared of being poor. I convinced myself it was for the best. And now I asked. Victor and I are getting divorced. He blames me for everything. We lost the house we were renting because we could not pay the rent. I am staying with a friend now. I lost my job because I could not focus. Everything is falling apart. She looked at me with desperate eyes. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I do not deserve anything from you. But I needed you to know how sorry I am." I sat back in my chair. The anger I had felt for weeks was still there, but it had dulled somehow. Looking at my broken daughter, I could not summon the rage I had expected. "Do you remember," I said slowly, "when you were 8 years old and you broke your mother's favorite vase?" She blinked, surprised by the question. "I remember. You cried and cried because you thought we would be furious. But what did your mother do?" Brenda swallowed hard. She hugged me. She said accidents happen. That is right, because she loved you. And I love you too, Brenda. I always have, even when you hurt me more than anyone has ever hurt me. Her face crumpled. But love does not mean accepting betrayal. Love does not mean letting someone throw you away like garbage. I had to protect myself. I had to show you that I am not helpless. "I know," she whispered. I leaned forward. "Here is what is going to happen. I am not going to give you money. I am not going to rescue you from the consequences of your choices." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "But if you want to rebuild our relationship, truly rebuild it, the door is open. Not because of what you can get from me, but because you genuinely want to be my daughter again. That is all I want," she said. "I swear, Dad, that is all I want. Then prove it. Actions, not words. Show me that you have changed. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I will. I promise I will. I looked at her hand on mine. This woman who had plotted against me, who had wanted to throw me into a nursing home and sell everything I had built, but also the baby I had held in my arms 38 years ago, the little girl who had learned to ride a bike in our driveway, the teenager I had taught to drive, the bride I had walked down the aisle. Time will tell, I said. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Over the following months, things slowly changed. Brenda and Victor finalized their divorce. It was ugly and painful, but it was over. Brenda found a small apartment and a new job. Nothing fancy, but enough to pay the bills. She called me every week. At first, the conversations were awkward, stilted, but gradually we found our way back to something resembling normalcy. She started coming to visit me at my apartment. Sometimes she brought food she had cooked. Never as good as Margaret's, but I ate it anyway. She would sit in my living room and tell me about her week, about her struggles, about her small victories. I told Mr. Harrison to hold off on finalizing my new will, not to include Brenda again, but to give myself time to see how things developed. 6 months after she had come back from Japan, Brenda sat with me on a park bench. It was spring now. The trees were blooming. The air smelled fresh and clean. Dad, she said, I want to thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. I know I did not deserve another chance. I watched a young mother pushing a stroller down the path. Life goes on. That is what I learned. We can either hold on to anger and let it consume us, or we can choose to move forward. Brenda was quiet for a moment. I think about Mom a lot now, about what she would say. She would say that she loves you, and that she hopes you learned from this. Brenda wiped her eyes. I have, Dad. I really have. I believed her. For the first time in a long time, I actually believed her. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. Two imperfect people trying to heal from wounds they had inflicted on each other. It was not a fairy tale ending. Our relationship would never be what it was before. The trust that had been broken could not be fully restored. But it was real. And sometimes real is better than perfect. A year has passed since I sold that house on Maple Hill. I still live in my modest apartment. Still have coffee with Frank every morning. Still build houses with the volunteer group when my back allows it. Still share dinners with Eleanor and swap stories about our late spouses. Brenda calls me every Sunday evening. She tells me about her work, her friends, her small apartment that she has decorated with photographs of our family. She never asks for money. She never mentions the house. She just wants to talk. We have dinner together once a month. Sometimes she cooks. Sometimes we go to a restaurant. It is not the same as the old days, but it is something. Something new that we are building together. The hurt is still there if I look for it. Some wounds never fully heal, but I have chosen not to dwell on it. Not because Brenda deserves my forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. I think about Margaret often, what she would think about everything that happened. I like to believe she would be proud of how I handled it, not with vengeance or cruelty, but with wisdom, with strength. I used to think that being a good father meant giving everything to your children, sacrificing without limit, putting their needs before your own, no matter what. Now I know that is not quite right. Being a good father means loving your children enough to let them face the consequences of their actions. It means setting boundaries, even when it hurts. It means teaching them that love is not unconditional permission to do whatever they want. Brenda learned that lesson the hard way. She lost a house worth $5 million. She lost her marriage. She lost her sense of herself. But maybe she found something more valuable in the wreckage. She found humility. She found the understanding that family is not about what you can take, but what you are willing to give. She found the truth about herself, ugly as it was, and chose to become better. That is worth more than any house. As for me, I found freedom. Not just financial freedom, though that is about as certainly nice, but freedom from the role I had trapped myself in. The role of the helpless old man. The burden. The problem to be solved. I am none of those things. I am Jesse Carter, 69 years old, carpenter, husband, father, survivor. I have a modest apartment that is entirely my own. Good friends who care about me. A daughter who is learning to love me the right way, and plenty of years left to enjoy it all. That is more than enough. I stand in front of Margaret's photograph every night before I go to sleep. I tell her about my day, about the funny thing Frank said at coffee, about the house we are building for a family in need, about Brenda's latest phone call. Sometimes I ask her questions she cannot answer. Did I do the right thing? Was I too harsh? Too soft? Should I have given Brenda another chance sooner? Should I have cut her off completely? The photograph does not answer, but somehow I always feel better after talking to it. The other day, I was walking through the park when I saw an old man sitting alone on a bench. He looked sad, lost. I sat down next to him and struck up a conversation. Turns out his daughter had just put him in a nursing home. He hated it there. He felt abandoned, forgotten. I told him my story, all of it. His eyes grew wide as I described hearing the phone call, selling the house, leaving the note. "You really did that?" he asked. "I really did." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I wish I had your courage." I put my hand on his shoulder. It is not too late. It is never too late to stand up for yourself. I do not know if he took my advice, but I hope he did. I hope he found a way to reclaim his dignity, just like I did. Because that is the real lesson of this story. Not about money or houses or revenge. It is about knowing your worth. It is about refusing to be discarded. It is about standing up and saying, "No, you will not treat me this way. I am not a burden. I am not a problem. I am a human being who deserves respect. And so are you." So if anyone out there is feeling invisible, feeling like a burden, feeling like your family is just waiting for you to get out of the way, know this: you have value, you have worth, you have every right to protect yourself and demand better treatment. Do not let anyone throw you away like old furniture. You are more than that. We all are. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family? Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Share your experiences so we can support each other. If this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. A parent who feels forgotten. A friend who is being taken advantage of. Anyone who needs a reminder that they deserve better. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope it gave you something to think about. May you find the courage to stand up for yourself whenever you need to. May you know your worth, even when others try to diminish it. And may you always remember that a home is not just a house. It is the place where you are loved and respected. Take care of yourselves. You matter.